correspondent and the lead field researcher for the International Council on Security and Development. Let's talk to you a little bit more about this, Ms. MacDonald. You say in the study that, quote, the Taliban's political, military, and economic strategies are now more successful than the West's in Afghanistan. Why are they succeeding?
Well, as you mentioned, what we've seen in the last year is this dramatic change from a 54% Taliban permanent presence to a 72% Taliban permanent presence, and they're closing in on Kabul. And in our report, what we've analyzed that, in fact, their grassroots strategies are part of the key to their success. They work at a village-to-village, district-to-district level, and that's been one of the failings of the international community's efforts in Afghanistan. And we've recommended a really dramatic change in our approach to learn from the Taliban excesses and try and turn around this dramatic move towards Kabul.
So you say that it's been a failure in the West and NATO, the United States military's approach. What has the U.S. military and NATO been doing wrong?
Well, to be clear, it's not a failure of the military who are on the ground. It's a question of what's been going on at the political level. We've recommended for some time now a doubling of troops in Afghanistan, that the non-fighting NATO troops join the fight in the south. But what the military needs is the proper political development and aid support behind their effort. So what we've said is that we have to start looking at things like employment and food aid as security instruments alongside traditional security instruments like military and intelligence. But we've got to give them the same financial and political support that we must necessarily continue to give to the military actors.
Now, the U.S. military, Ms. MacDonald, does agree with you that there needs to be more than a military solution, and General David McKiernan has long said that there is no military solution to Afghanistan. There needs to be other elements to it as well, but they disagree with your report. We got a statement from Colonel Greg Julian from U.S. forces in Afghanistan. He's a public affairs officer. He said, quote, we don't agree with the assessment that the Taliban have a permanent presence in 72% of Afghanistan. A few spectacular attacks have created the perception of increased insurgent capability and overall insecurity as well. Afghan and British officials say they don't agree with the methodology used in your report. What do you say to those disagreements?
Well, the methodology is quite clear. What we've done is we've tracked on a daily basis since last year every publicly reported attack that has been attributed by a third party to the Taliban, and then we've compared that to what the Afghans are telling us on the ground, where they believe the Taliban presence is. And it'd be fair to say that from a political and military point of view, no one is moving outside of Kabul city. 3 of the 4 doorways to Kabul city are now closed. They're compromised. And almost every single actor in the international and military community is either flying around Afghanistan, or if they're traveling on the roads, they're traveling in armored vehicles with armed escorts. So the facts on the ground really are telling a different story. But a lot of this, I think, is coming from a political context where at the political level, there isn't an acknowledgement of the dramatic circumstances, the dramatic change in circumstances in Afghanistan. And as I've said, we're not putting this at the doorstep of the military at all. It's a question of our overall security architecture in Afghanistan.
So what's behind all this? Is it because the United States, because this administration took its eye off the ball in Afghanistan and focused instead on Iraq?
Well, in this case, you can't just blame the United States, because NATO forces, NATO countries, NATO at the political level unanimously committed to go into Afghanistan to try and build a democracy and support the government there. But there are only a few NATO countries who are actually fighting in Afghanistan or contributing in any way to a resolution of the situation. We also point out that we don't see any of the regional actors there. We don't see other Muslim countries there. So that's what I mean when we're talking about a wholesale change of our security architecture there. It's not correct to say that the problem was created by the United States, and it's not correct to say that the problem will be solved by a new U.S. administration.
No question. It's an eye-opening report. Norine MacDonald from the International Council on Security and Development. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Well, we're just coming up on 8 o'clock.